gamers, welcome to Video Time with Mike and Tifa. I'm Mike.
And I'm Tifa.
And we are back. It's been a long couple of weeks. We were at conventions.
We were gone for the entirety of April, basically.
Pretty much. We had two conventions, Emerald City Comic Con and PAX East. We also went on vacation.
Yeah, we went to Disney World.
But we're back, and we'd like to talk about our conventions. We were at two conventions, and this is the first year we got to have panels. You've seen our Emerald City Comic Con video. We had a little brief recap. But we were at PAX East where we talked a little bit more and had some of the same panels. So we want to talk about some of the differences and the similarities between the two panels.
One thing we also want to talk about is some of the topics that were brought up in all the panels we were on, because we are planning on doing these again in the future. So you'll have an idea of what exactly those are going to be like.
Yeah, the first one we did was called The Couple That Games Together, and this was a panel that is important to both of us because we do game together.
For us, like, gaming really is our life, and probably the biggest aspect of our relationship. So, like Mike said, it's really important to us. And we have a lot of friends that are couples that game together. Yeah. So we thought that this would be a really good idea because we hadn't seen a panel like this before. And at both conventions, it filled the room. Filled the room, turned people away, which is something I don't think any of us, anyone on the panel expected. I moderated and I led most of the discussion. I asked a lot of questions, and then we took time and we took questions from the audience, which I felt was very, very interesting to get these questions from the audience. I asked sort of basic questions like why did we like being in couples that game together, how important is gaming in your relationship, how game
often
recommendations,
do you game?
What types of games. We found that the biggest thing we talked about was communication. Almost every issue that was either asked in a question or that came up from the questions that Mike asked the panel really boiled down to communication, which is interesting because, like, that's how it is for most problems in relationships. And when it comes to gaming, it still sort of all leads to the same. Just communicate. Just be open with each other.
When we took questions from the audience, a lot of the questions were very different questions, but as Tifa mentioned, all boiled down to the exact same thing. It was like, oh, I don't like this kind of game, but my partner likes this kind of game. What's a happy medium?
Or it was like, my partner's much better at this type of game than I am, so like it's less fun for me. How can we deal with this? And really it came down to talk to each other, find limits. One of the big things that came up in both panels was competition, especially competition between like the two people in the couple and how to deal with that. And really, like, everyone on the panel sort of agreed that it's like you need to set limitations, you need to talk to each other about, like, hey, like, I really can't play this game with you right now, or, like, let's only play this game for 20 minutes. And then also one thing that I brought up was, like, if you guys do have a game that one person's better than the other, find another game that, like, it's reversed, and then play them one after another, so that both people feel, you know, confident and good about themselves and can have, like, a happy night.
I think another really important point that came up from that sort of same line of discussion was if one person's really good at one kind of game and the other one's not, find a game that neither person has played.
Yeah, trying a new game together.
Yeah, that way everyone's on the same level playing field. There's no clear one person's better at the other. Like, you both are learning a game together, which I think was very important. It basically boiled down to, and we had Susan Ardent on this panel, and she said it best. She said that this panel was group therapy. And that's really what it was. It was a 500-person group therapy session for gamers.
Yeah, but there also was, like, a lot of joking. I felt like the chemistry on both panels was really, really good.
Oh, absolutely, good. Yeah. There was a ton of laughs.
Yeah, so it was awesome.
I look forward to actually doing this panel, like, keeping this panel going. I think this is a panel that's going to sort of be evergreen, where games are always going to change, so there's always going to be something new to talk about when it comes to this panel.
Yeah. I also did two different feminism panels. The one at Emerald City Comic Con I was moderating, and on the panel with me was Liz Leo and Anastasia Vesneski. Liz Leo is involved with job hunters and also One Up Makeup, and Anna is in the military and a gamer, so she had a lot of insight. She also has worked in the industry. So it was a really good mix of people on the panel. It was really, like, laid back because I was friends with these people. That was very, very different than the PAX one. It was Ken Gagney's panel with Susan Arndt, Brianna Wu, and Dwayne DeFore, who are huge names in the video game industry, and I felt very honored and empowered to be on stage with people who are such an influence in the community when, you know, I've only been in the industry for like 4 years, So it was a big deal for me to be included on this.
I was in the audience for both, and I felt that both panels tackled a ton of subjects. But I agree with you that the Emerald City Comic Con was a little bit more laid back, and I felt like you guys got more questions from the audience in this one, and you had a more discussion with the audience. Whereas the PAX panel, it was, here are a bunch of topics we're going to discuss, and then each panel member is going to have something to say about them.
Yeah, and what's crazy is we didn't even get through, like, we only had like 3 topics we really wanted to cover. We didn't even get through all 3.
No, you
We
didn't. You
sort
talk
of
about PAX East, right?
Yeah, at PAX East.
Yeah.
We sort of grazed the surface of all 3, like, a little bit, but we planned on, like, super diving into each one, and there was just not enough time at all. It was really industry focused, and like I said, really empowering, because the voices on stage just had so much experience.
People were very shocked at how you guys turned people away for this room, that you
Yeah.
filled the room up at PAX East, that you managed to get, because you guys were in a huge theater.
It was crazy, and like the footage, looking at the footage afterwards, I think it was Susan that was like, I didn't realize how many people we were talking to. I want to talk a little about the topics that were covered in both panels. There was a lot of the same topics were covered, just in very different manners, and like I said, the PAX one was way more industry focused, where the Emerald City Comic Con one was way more community focused.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's a really good way to separate the two.
For example, one of the things that the PAX panel talked about was how it's really, really difficult to have kids in the industry.
Yeah.
Both Susan and Brianna have not had children, do not plan on having children. And Brianna actually said, I'm not having kids and doing this work in the hopes that like the generation behind me can. Which I'm very thankful for, because I'm only 25 and I'm hoping to have kids and hoping to still, be a big influence in the gaming world. And I really do hope it's possible to do both. Another difference was we had males on the panel at PAX East, which I think was really, really, really important, because both panels talked about how important male support is. How we really can't get anywhere without male voices being next to us and showing their support. If somebody is sexist, they're already not going to take a woman seriously. So we need men saying the same things we're saying.
It was also the males that were there, because it was Ken Gagne who's run his YouTube channel for a very long time. He's had a lot of discussions like that. But Dwayne DeFore, who wasn't really he's not really in the video game industry, he was there because he had dealt a lot with domestic violence issues and rape issues and stuff like that. So he had this whole outside perspective, which I think really added to the rest of this.
There was a lot of discussion about history of sexism in gaming on the PAX panel, and Ken started the panel with the question of, is this a new problem or is it just one coming to light? Susan answered that it's a problem that has always been around, and we talked about different ideas of why it's now coming to light. We all had some different input on that. A few things that both panels touched real quick. We talked about sexy, powerful females versus objectification and submissive damsels in distress, and how extremely different those two things are, and how it really needs to be understood that like sexy is not bad, objectification is. We also talked about realistic depictions of women, especially involving outfits. Lastly, talking about subtle sexism versus blatant sexism, because there's a lot of subtle sexism in the industry, in the community, in games, and many people don't understand or see that, and it's not really until they hear these kind of conversations that they can start to see what we mean by that, because a lot of times people are like, oh, I don't see blatant sexism, so there isn't a problem, but really that's not the case.
I felt both panels could have been much longer.
Honestly.
Oh yeah, there was a ton to be discussed still.
Something interesting that I found, I'm a fairly girly person, and we talked about how that's okay. Both panels mentioned that there's no problem with wanting to be a girly and wear pink and makeup, and like you don't have to do that either. It's like whatever you want. But a lot of times, I feel like women who are trying to be powerful in the industry are faced with like, oh, but if you're feminine, it's bad because you're like falling into all those stereotypes.
Right.
But no, that's not the case. Dress how you want. Dress how you feel powerful. Oh, the PAX panel was recorded, so you can watch it. It'll be in our
We will link to it. Yep, we'll link to it in the description.
Yeah.
The last panel we had at both conventions was the Creating Diversity Playgroups, which is something that Tifa's sort of a specialist in, because she has created the Lady Planeswalker Society.
Which is a fun, welcoming environment for women and all genders to play Magic the Gathering.
This was talking about what it's like to create a play group that is sort of outside of the norm. We had Sharice Watson, who helped with Queer Geek. She started a Queer Geek Seattle Magic Night. And Ben, I don't.
Ben Williams.
Thank you. I was like, I actually don't know Ben's last name. Ben Williams, who helped spawn Gamer X, which is a massive convention down in, I believe, San Francisco.
He also was a huge part of the Diversity Lounge and Hub at PAX East, which we were involved with. So it was great to have him on the panels as well.
Yeah, so for these panels, they were sort of at odd times, and both panels had sort of smaller audiences, but the people that were there were really interested in what we had to say. I felt we got a much more intimate discussion, a lot more back and forth with these audiences.
Yeah, a lot smaller, but so much more engagement.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of people who showed up who had playgroups of their own that wanted some help, which like we were able to, and I've actually been in contact with some of them after the fact.
When I went to Comic-Con, the conversation was much more about how can we continue these groups we already have, and I felt the one at PAX East was we would like to start these groups not just for Magic, but for other play groups. Yeah. How do we do this?
The takeaway for both was just do it.
Yeah.
Like, it's really just about digging in and doing it. And another thing, very similar to the feminism panel, is it's really, really important to have the support and to include white, straight male gamers, how they need to be a part of those groups.
So that's it. Those are the panels that we did at these two conventions. We are going to try to record future panels that we're on because we realize the importance of getting these panels up.
If you'd like to see the Sex, Sexy, Sexism panel that I was on at PAX East, please look at the description below.
And as always, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know if you saw any of our panels. Let us know if you plan to see any of our panels. Let us know if there's something you have an interest in. And as always, happy gaming!